Alrighty, I think we're ready to get started. Welcome in, everyone. This is a place to heal. Tonight, I thought that we would talk about what types of therapists are out there and what types of therapy they might do. So, brief introduction to myself. This is a place to heal. I have worked in the mental health field for about 5 years in total. Got my start working with foster and adopted kids in the foster and adoption system, working in the home. I've worked in mental health hospitals for a couple of years and have even been in grad school to be a marriage and family therapist. Didn't actually finish my degree, so quick disclaimer, all of the advice given in this channel is not professional therapy advice. I'm not a licensed professional, but have had experiencing patients doing psychotherapy. So on that note, I figured today, in honor of that, many of you out there might be interested in getting started in therapy, but a little overwhelmed. Hey, I know there's so many therapists out there. I know that there's psychologists, there's psychiatrists. What's the difference between a clinical social worker, a LPC, MFT, RPG, all that stuff? What does it mean? What's the difference between talk therapy and EMDR? And I've heard of CBT and DBT and all that cool stuff. People have been telling me that I should get started in therapy, and where do I start? I'm a little bit overwhelmed. So I figured what we would do today is spend a little bit of time talking about just that, and hopefully we can demystify exactly what kind of licensed professional might be a good fit for you if you're interested in getting started in therapy services. So without further ado, let me hop on over to my browser here. There we go. So as per usual, you know the usual drill. If you've been here before, I will kind of dive in, and we've got some videos kind of highlighting some of the topics that we're going to be talking about today. In addition to that, we're going to be making a cute little infographic as a group just to summarize the stuff that we've been talking about today. As per usual, all of the resources that I make on stream, I keep inside of my Discord server. So if you're not a member of the Discord server, you are missing out. I keep in the resource section of the Discord server. In addition to that, I also will typically post these on my Instagram. So feel free to follow my Instagram. It's a little bit professional because I do intend to use it once I finish up my therapy degree. So, and I also post additional content on my Instagram that is not discussed on stream. So if you're really digging the therapy content, you really want to seriously work on your mental health, or you really want to get better in your relationships with other people in general, then feel free to follow me on my Instagram. Feel free to hang out in the Discord server. We're always talking about cool mental health stuff, talking about gaming, talking about music, all the wonderful touchy-feely things. So I'm going to go ahead and pop that in the chat really quick, and we will get started. What's up, Ratataz? How goes it? I enjoyed your stream earlier. Are you super burnt out as heck by now? You missed the intro. We're talking about the different types of therapists and different types of therapy out there. So, yeah, it'll be a good old time. So I've got a couple of videos here. I like this first video here for just outlining the different types of therapists. It doesn't do an exhaustive job of listing every single type of professional in the field, so I'll probably have to fill in some of those gaps because at this point I've interfaced with every single type of therapist under the sun. I've professionally worked with psychiatrists, psychologists, licensed practicing counselor or licensed psychological counselors, MFTs. I've worked with art therapists. I've worked with rec therapists. I've worked with music therapists, which I actually thought at some point about going to music therapy school, and then decided to make like no money, so didn't go that route. But that's also a cool title. So we'll talk all about the different types of therapy. Yo, what's up, Flame? How you doing, man? How goes it, my friend? How's your night going? Yeah, we are talking about the different types of therapy and therapists. So, if you've ever thought, Flame, have you ever been in therapy, my dude? All right, I'm gonna start the video up while we yak in here. Sorry, y'all. Forgot to check the audio
Caring
levels.
for your mental health goes well beyond getting a prescription. In this session, Dr. Dom walks through the types of mental health professionals that offer services other than prescribing medication. He breaks down the types of training they undergo.
Not burnt out streams can be energizing at times. Well, that's good. I'm glad you're not burnt out. And thank you for hanging out. It's always nice hanging out with you.
What treatments they offer, and how to find the best type for you. So from my understanding, mental health providers are broken up into two big categories, those that can prescribe and those that cannot. Let's first talk about the ones that can not prescribe medication. Let's start with psychologists.
All right, so a psychologist, first of all though, I want to back up 1 second.
Yeah.
I want to say that every single one of these providers has a very important place in behavioral health. I don't want the viewers to think that one is better than the other or one is more important than the other, because I honestly feel, and this is just my experience in the behavioral.
So this guy is a psychiatrist. So he's a licensed, he is a doctor of medicine. He's a medical doctor that also specifically focuses on mental health, or diagnosing and addressing mental health disorders, and he does so usually using like medication. So when I worked in, but he kind of brings up a good point here. Whether you're working in like a psych hospital or a therapy setting or whatever, anywhere in the healthcare system, all of these different titles and professionals really work synergistically. So if I'm just like a licensed professional counselor, I might sit down and do talk therapy with someone. But then if I see that maybe the person's struggling with depression or anxiety, and it's a pretty consistent thing, I might say, hey, we can totally do talk therapy, but you might also benefit from medication. Let me refer you out to this psychiatrist that I know, or we can look up someone that is covered by your insurance, and then you can go look into getting medication. So, but yeah, he brings up a good point that all these professionals ultimately are kind of used synergistically, and if you're kind of not in that world, it can be a little bit overwhelming to figure out exactly, okay, I don't know if I want meds, I want therapy, but there's like 20 different types of therapists. So let's dive in.
Healthcare feel that it is a team effort, okay? And unfortunately, there can be some, turf wars between psychologists and psychiatrists and case workers and social. And to me, I think that's silly. I think it's very important to acknowledge that to get the best help, everyone has to work as a team.
The guy on the right is very
not necessarily more important.
Quintessential therapist.
That's what I just want to get out there. All right. Speaking of psychologists, so important in the process. Psychologists, as we spoke, are PhDs or PsyDs. It's a doctorate level of training. These are people that went to 4 years of college and then 4 years of graduate school. And a lot of psychologists that I worked with or work with on a daily basis are just amazing at what they do, and they tend to focus on therapeutic interventions. So you can either be a clinical psychologist, which means that you interact with patients, or you can be a research psychologist, right? So there's a little bit of a broad spectrum as to what a psychologist does. I know plenty of people that are PhDs in psychology but don't see patients, but they love being in the lab, and they gather data and do research and do papers, and it's wonderful, like research papers. Clinical psychology.
I actually thought about this myself. I still at some point in the future might go back and get a doctoral degree in clinical psychology. It'd probably be after I finish up my master's degree. And he brings up a good thing. So the first two, I've got our infographic here. I'm going to be pulling over as we fill out our list here. So the first two professionals that we have that he mentioned would be psychiatrists, and the second one would be psychologists. Y'all didn't know I came prepared with the cheat sheet, did you? It's because I know. Been in this field long enough, I know a thing or two. And he brings up a great distinction between these two fields. So a psychiatrist, like I mentioned before, is an actual medical doctor. Let me zoom in just a tad here. There we go, that's better. It's an actual medical doctor. Also, I'm a little bit high up. Hold on. Why am I so high up over here? There we go. That's a little bit better. I will fix that later. So a psychiatrist is an actual medical doctor. So they went through 4 years of an undergraduate degree and then 4 years of medical school. And then typically they'll go through an additional 2 years of a psychiatry-focused medical residency. So they graduated med school, and then they spend another 2 years in like a residency where they're like learning all about the field of psychiatry while seeing patients. It's an insane amount of school. They make ridiculously good amounts of money, typically over $200,000 a year. But yeah, it is an insane amount of school, and the amount of debt that they can graduate with can be massive. But because they are medical doctors, they can prescribe medication. A psychologist, on the other hand, also typically has a doctoral degree, but they don't typically have the ability to prescribe medication. A psychologist, like he mentioned, can typically do two things. One, they will either focus on research. So really, when you talk about becoming a psychologist, you have two general tracks. If you're talking about clinical psychology in particular, you can get a PhD, so doctorate in philosophy, which is more of a research-focused degree, but you can also see patients, but typically those people will do a mixture of like research, like researching psychology and like coming up with the latest, greatest therapeutic interventions, do a mixture of seeing patients doing therapy, and typically they kind of focus on diagnosis, as opposed to, they will do normal talk therapy, but a lot of what a psychologist will do will be focusing on diagnosing, especially like the really more severe mental health disorders like schizophrenia, narcissistic personality disorder, that sort of thing, the more rare stuff. And so, or a PhD psychologist might also teach. So they might teach in a university because they got a doctoral degree, and they might teach, Psych 101 to a whole bunch of 18-year-olds. On the other hand, you've got a PsyD, which is a doctorate in psychology, and those types of psychologists, which if I went back to school and got my doctorate, that would be totally what I get. That is a 4-year degree in addition to their undergraduate degree. Hey, what's up, Etta? How you doing? I'm surprised you were still up. What time is it over there? Welcome in. We're talking about therapy and the types of therapists that one can see, and what types of kind of different approaches to therapists exist out there. So welcome in. You were just in time. 2:30 a.m. Whoo! Man, well, thank you for coming in to hang out with little old me. Thanks for coming in. I wonder, you said, let's see, you're in the Netherlands somewhere, right? I wonder if all of these we're talking about the different types of therapists, and I wonder if all the same types of therapists exist over in Europe. I know in some countries like the UK, they use the DSM-5 over there, which is like the Bible of diagnosing mental health disorders. So I know they use some of that over there, but I don't know that much about the Netherlands. So anyway, yeah, the psychologist, there's also the PsyD, which is a 4-year doctoral program. It's kind of a professional program like medical school. It's really focused on like seeing patients as opposed to research. So those are generally the two distinctions of a psychiatrist and a psychologist. One's a medical doctor that focuses on prescribing psych meds, and the other one is really more focused on diagnosis, but then intervening with therapy.
Just deal with patients. And in most cases, they tend to find a paradigm that they sort of like. And we've talked about CBT and DBT or ACT, all these different sort of therapeutic interventions. And they tend to specialize in some. Now, there are psychologists that are sort of...
Also, you have to help me understand how to pronounce your name. So it must be Ida then. That's why you got the double E on there? There we go. I think I got it right. If I got it wrong, you can yell at me. Tell me the right way to pronounce it, please.
A jack of all trades too. But keep in mind that psychologist or clinical psychologist is going to be a highly trained individual that is going to focus on therapeutic intervention if you're going to see one.
Okay. And just in case this is someone's first time at Med Circle, CBT, DBT.
We're not talking about relationship stuff tonight, but we have in the past talked about. So I was actually in grad school to be a marriage and family therapist for a while. I didn't finish it, but I'm planning on going back. So. But yeah, have you ever done any I don't know what kind of services are accessible over there, but generally been in any kind of therapy or thought about it before?
And ACT or ACT are all different types of treatments. We have series on all 3 of those. They're available at medcircle.com.
We'll talk about the types of therapy next.
What kind of training would a psychologist and clinical psychologist undergo?
So the training that they're going to undergo is, so first they're going to go to an undergraduate college, right? So you graduate high school in the United States, and the next step is we're going to go to a 4-year college.
Very cool.
You can major in whatever you want, basically. It can be a psychology degree, it can be an economics degree, it doesn't matter. But you're going to apply to a graduate school in psychology that offers a PhD degree. And then what they're going to do is they're going to go.
And did you, do you know what type of, did you just see like a normal therapist, or I'm so curious like what they have in other countries. So here we've got like psychiatrists, which are doctors. We've got psychologists, and then we've got just a whole crap ton of master's level therapists. There's like a normal therapist, and there's ones focusing on addiction and social work and all of that. Is it kind of the same way over there too?
Go to a 4-year program of training in the behavioral sciences. And there are different tracks. There's research-based tracks, there's clinical-based tracks. So it really depends on the school that you go to as to sort of what the direction your career is going to go, basically. So, so psychologists are going to get that 4 years of training, maybe even some
psychologists
internship
can kind of do a
experience
lot.
after
They
that
can
4
teach,
years.
they can research, or they can see patients.
Psychologist or
Yo, what's up,
neurologist, or
Alpha
whatever it may
Gamer?
be.
Cool.
Yo, long time no see, man. How's it been? Yo, you came in at a great time for community game night. You up for some Overwatch later?
So it's extensive training for sure.
Now, what is the role of a counselor?
Counselor. So counselor.
We're talking about the different types of therapists that exist out there and the different types of therapies that you could do. So I forget if you've told me if you've ever been interested in doing therapy or given it a try before, if you've done it before. But yeah, if you have, or you have been thinking about it, you came on a good night. So welcome in.
It's kind of a funny word, right? It's kind of a vague word because you can call a PhD psychologist a counselor, right? However, you know, when we talk about counselors, it's like an umbrella term.
Let's see. Flame says, I called into a 24/7 anxiety mental health place before. Not sure what that counts as. Yeah, and that's a whole another thing too. So you've got a whole other slew of allied mental health professionals. So for example, you've got like a crisis line mental health worker. Oftentimes those people aren't necessarily like licensed therapists, but they'll have some kind of training in kind of like crisis management and de-escalation, and they'll be able to point you in the direction of if you kind of call into them. And I'm not super familiar with like an anxiety kind of thing, but I'm kind of thinking of more of the suicide hotlines. And those people will kind of talk to you for a little while, and then they'll kind of help point you in the right direction once they have a better idea of exactly how you're feeling, what you're struggling with. So yeah, and then there's also kind of other smaller positions as well. I've been like a mental health tech, which is just like a grunt working on the grounds in a mental hospital. I've done that for several years. So yeah, there's all kinds of stuff out there. Flame, my man, we gotta get you hooked up with a therapist, my dude. I don't mean to say that in a derogatory way, but I think everyone should do therapy. That's like my mission in life, for people to get to the point where seeing a therapist is as normal as them seeing their doctor. That's like, I know the world has become a good place when that dream becomes realized.
And under that umbrella can be a psychologist, a PhD, or a PsyD. You also have master's level of training, which means in the United States,